has fueled anticipation in the healthcare industry and made Holmes the world's youngest female self-made billionaire.
Release me, even if it's just house arrest.
House arrest, and you have this ankle monitor here.
I do.
Is that annoying?
No, I'm getting used.
Anna Sorokin, better known as Anna Delvey, was a young woman who, from 2013 to 2018, walked into New York City's luxury hotels, dined with the elite, and borrowed millions, all without a single dollar to her name. She claimed to be a German heiress, and the world believed her. Friends, banks, and hotels fell for her audacity, not because she had money, but because she sold belief better than reality. Now imagine that same audacity in Silicon Valley, not in hotels, but in laboratories, not in designer dresses, but in black turtlenecks. And instead of money, the stakes were human lives. Her name was Elizabeth Holmes. At 19, she dropped out of Stanford with a single promise: a machine that could run hundreds of blood tests from just one drop of blood. No needles, no waiting, no limits. A miracle in a box, or so she claimed. Investors, desperate for the next big breakthrough, poured in hundreds of millions. Walgreens and Safeway signed massive deals. Henry Kissinger and George Shultz joined her board. General James Mattis publicly supported her. Rupert Murdoch invested $125 million. Even Joe Biden toured her lab, calling it the laboratory of the future. She wasn't just selling technology, she was selling a story, the kind that headlines crave, the kind that turns a 19-year-old dropout into the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. For years, the world watched in awe. Magazines called her visionary. Tech conferences showcased her. But behind the polished labs, the contracts, and the fame, there was one truth she couldn't hide. The miracle never existed. The machine didn't work. And the impossible she promised was nothing but an illusion. Elizabeth Holmes grew up in Washington, D.C., the daughter of a well-connected family. Her father worked for government agencies. Her mother was a congressional aide. From childhood, Elizabeth declared she wanted to be a billionaire. Not a doctor, not a scientist, a billionaire. To her, money wasn't just wealth. It was proof that she could change the world. Her ambition wasn't subtle, it was magnetic. Friends recall a young Elizabeth declaring that she would own a company bigger than anyone could imagine, long before she understood what it would take to actually build one. At Stanford, she studied chemical engineering. Intelligent, intense, and secretive, Elizabeth kept her ideas close. By her second year, she told her professors she had invented a patch that could draw blood, analyze it, and deliver medication automatically. They doubted it. She didn't care. At 19, she filed her first patent and soon dropped out, determined to build her empire. She admired Steve Jobs not just for his innovation, but for his relentless vision, his willingness to disrupt industries, and his refusal to compromise. Like him, she refused to waste her time in classrooms when she could be building her dream. In 2003, she founded Theranos. The company's early idea was vague, a wearable patch, but soon it transformed into something more ambitious. A small machine, no bigger than a desktop printer, that could run hundreds of blood tests from a single finger prick. Imagine it, she said. No more syringes, no long waits, no doctors as middlemen. Healthcare could be fast, easy, and accessible to everyone. It was the kind of audacious promise that made investors hungry, journalists intrigued, and Silicon Valley fall in love with the myth. Elizabeth spoke with a conviction that was almost hypnotic. She wore her signature black turtlenecks and spoke in a deliberately low, commanding tone, projecting authority far beyond her years. She didn't blink. She didn't waver. She radiated inevitability. And in Silicon Valley, inevitability is more powerful than money. Investors weren't just buying a product. They were buying the vision, the story, the belief that Elizabeth Holmes could do the impossible. Don Lucas, the legendary investor who backed Oracle, believed in her. Larry Ellison, Oracle's billionaire founder, invested. Millions quickly turned into hundreds of millions. Fortune called her a prodigy. The media compared her to Steve Jobs. Every photograph, headline, and interview added to her legend. But inside Theranos, the truth was far darker. Blood testing is not like coding an app. It requires chemistry, biology, and extreme precision. Each test is unique. Some rely on shining light through blood, others on chemical reactions. Traditional labs use machines the size of refrigerators to run just a handful of tests. Elizabeth promised to shrink hundreds of them into a single black box. It was revolutionary, but it was also impossible. One drop of blood wasn't enough. Diluting it ruined accuracy. Machines interfered with each other. Engineers tried everything. Results were inconsistent, unreliable, often dangerously wrong. Elizabeth didn't care. She demanded results. Teams worked around the clock, or were fired. She hired multiple competing teams to create versions of the machine, then fired whichever fell behind. Employees lived under strict confidentiality agreements, monitored constantly, terrified of Sunny Balwani, Theranos' president, and Elizabeth's secret boyfriend, who ruled the company with intimidation and fear. He had no medical background, yet he controlled the lab with absolute authority. Staff whispered about his temper, about his sudden firings, about the climate of constant fear, and still the outside world saw none of this. Walgreens signed a deal to install Theranos machines in stores nationwide. Safeway invested $350 million to renovate its clinics. Elizabeth spoke on television about ending suffering and saving lives. She claimed her machines could run over 200 tests instantly. She even convinced Washington's elite. Former Secretaries of State Henry Kissinger and George Shultz joined her board. General James Mattis signed on. Joe Biden toured her lab, calling it the laboratory of the future. But the laboratory Biden toured was fake. Devices were staged, samples were not real, and when tests were performed, they weren't done on Theranos machines at all. They were secretly run on standard commercial machines hidden in the back. The deception worked. By 2014, Theranos was worth $9 billion. Elizabeth's net worth was estimated at over $5 billion. She was celebrated as the youngest self-made female billionaire in history. Inside the company, scientists knew the truth. Machines didn't work. Patients were at risk. Ian Gibbons, one of the most respected scientists, tried tirelessly to make the machines function. By 2013, he was exhausted, demoralized, and pressured by lawsuits. Days before he was set to testify in court, he overdosed on medication. He died quietly, unacknowledged by Elizabeth. Work continued in silence, under constant threat. Employees were forbidden to speak to outsiders. Whistleblowers faced intimidation and legal threats. Some couldn't stay silent. Tyler Schultz, grandson of George Schultz, discovered the machines didn't work and tried to warn his grandfather. But even he was under Elizabeth's spell. To the outside world, anyone questioning her was a liar. Then came 2015. The Wall Street Journal published a bombshell exposé. Reporter John Carreyrou revealed that Theranos machines could perform only a fraction of the promised tests, and even those were dangerously unreliable. Most results came from third-party machines. Patients were misdiagnosed, investors had been deceived. Walgreens sued, Safeway cut ties. The empire collapsed almost overnight. By 2018, Theranos was gone. Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani were indicted on multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. Elizabeth Holmes wasn't just selling a machine. She was selling belief. The belief that one drop of blood could save lives, that science could be sleek, modern, and iPhone-like, that a 19-year-old could change the world. And for over a decade, the world believed her. Theranos was not a revolution, it was a warning. Ambition had turned into deception. Promises hid dangerous truths. Elizabeth Holmes will not be remembered as the next Steve Jobs. She will be remembered as the architect of Silicon Valley's greatest disaster.